Hi. Today I am going to update you guys on some of the new releases that I have already read. I am lucky enough to have read some of my most anticipated releases of the year because I received the arcs of them on NetGalley. And also I read some of the books that have already come out that were released this year that I was highly anticipating. Do we have some flops? Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. But did I find some new 5-star reads? Yes, I did. We have a wide range of books that I'm going to go over today. These, like I said, are all 2026 releases. I'll be starting with the worst books that I read to the best books that I read. And as I said, these were all books that were in my most anticipated releases of the year video, books that I have been so excited for, books from some of my favorite authors. I want to do another video like this once I read more of my anticipated releases, just to do an update on the video that I did last year and see if any of my anticipated releases ended up being good books. We are going to start off with some DNFs, unfortunately. Yeah. One of the first releases of the year that I had read that I was incredibly excited for, and I have to say these two books that I DNF'd are probably the most disappointing books I've ever read in my life. The first book being Throne of Nightmares by Carrie Maniscalco. Guys, I don't know, maybe me and Romantasy, we're just not girls anymore. Who knows? But I was really looking forward to this book because at this point, this is the third book in the series. It is the Prince of Sins series? The first book, Throne of the Fallen, 5 out of 5 stars. That book was phenomenal. The second book, so mid, I can't even begin to explain. This book, guys, I was the most excited for this third book because it follows Prince Sloth and his romance, and I have been waiting, dying for his romance since the first book. Ugh, this was such a flop. Okay, in this book, as I said, we follow Prince Sloth, and he has a magical library. And in the beginning of the book, a dark goddess manages to lure his assistant that has been helping him and working with him for years. He is the head librarian at his magical library, and he ends up stealing a very powerful magical book for the dark goddess and betraying Prince Sloth. And then the female main character is a librarian for the local library. In a whirlwind of events, she ends up going along with Prince Sloth on this journey to try and get back the magic book to prevent the dark goddess from taking over the world, ruining the world, whatever. They essentially have to go through these trials, but these trials are scenes directly taken from the books that the female main character has read. They get placed into these scenes, into these magical worlds of the books that she's read, and they have to somehow escape. And those are the trials that they have to go through in order to make it to the dark goddess where the magical book is. I did not make it past 50% because you would have thought that this would have been the book for me. It's about libraries. It's about magical books. It's a romance between Prince Sloth and a librarian. And there were so many book references. They get put into the plots of these books. You would have thought that as a book lover, it would have been written for me, but it surely was not, because the female main character, oh my God. Talk about self-inserting yourself into these books. Anytime that she had a romantic scene or there was some tension between her and Prince Sloth, in her mind she would think, oh my God, this is just like a scene out of my dark romance book. Oh my God, he's the dark, broody, bad boy character and I'm the damsel in distress. And I could not do it. By this 5th or 6th time that she had said something along those lines, I was sick of it. I was tired of it. I was like, girl, we get it. You are in the plot of a dark romantasy and you're living your best life. I don't need to hear you talk about it or hear your thoughts about it because I'm already reading it. I'm already reading this scene, okay? I don't need the self-insertion. I don't need the self-explanation, okay? Yeah, I just got kind of sick and tired of it. And then also, they just kept getting put in these insane plots of these books and it got repetitive. They get placed into this dangerous situation. She meets a character from the book that she's read. They somehow escape and then they do it all over again. And it's that over and over and over again, and I was sick of it. So I ended up DNFing this. I also felt like the romance had no chemistry at all. They have nothing in common besides the fact that they like books, and they didn't have any real meaningful conversations. It was truly just close proximity and them finding each other attractive. That's it. That was all the chemistry that there was between these two to justify a romance. Yeah. And I'm devastated because I was, one, looking forward to this book, and two, I have really been trying to keep up with this series, but the last two books just have not done it for me. I think the first book might have been a one-hit wonder, and I'm actually scared to reread that because maybe it was just the perfect book at the perfect time, and if I reread it now, would I think the same thing about the last two books, that I actually didn't like it? I'm scared to reread it. But yeah, I DNF'd this book. I am DNFing the series entirely because at this point I'm not putting myself through any more of this, but I'm devastated. So that was Throne of Nightmares. Okay. The next DNF. Again, I can't tell you how devastated I am about this. And it's also a book some of my friends that have read it didn't like either, and I think this might be the biggest disappointment of the entire year. Truly. I really believe that. I DNF'd And Now Back to You by B.K. Borson. Devastated, babes. Devastated. I can't emphasize how devastated I am. It's because this was pitched as being heavily inspired, almost a light retelling of When Harry Met Sally, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Bitch, don't piss me off. Do not piss me off, because this in no way, shape, or form was anywhere near that. This doesn't even come close to that. There is a scene where the female main character is ordering something at a restaurant and she's very picky about what she orders. And that is truly the only scene at all that I thought resembled When Harry Met Sally, because Sally in the movie is a very type A anal person about the food that she orders. She likes things a very specific way. Is that it? Is that it? Because the female main character in this book, okay, let me calm down. Let me calm down. So what is this book about? So you have, I don't even remember their fucking names. Truly, I don't even care, honestly. But the female main character is a weather girl for the local news station. And then the male main character is the meteorologist for the radio station. And the TV station and the radio station actually are, I think, in the same building or across the street from each other, but they share a parking lot. Okay. And these two characters are always colliding and always somehow running into each other. And he does not like her, and he is very annoyed by her because she's a very clumsy, messy, manic pixie dream girl type of person. And I could not stand her. I really couldn't. I felt the same way as he did. She was messy and she was clumsy and she kept spilling shit and she kept tripping. And I'm just like, girl, you're like in your 30s. Get it together. Like, get it together. I'm sorry. I just can't stand people like that are just like all fucking over the place. Cause you're an adult. Get it together, babe. Get it together. All right, I have the physical copy here still. I'm unhauling it because I couldn't stand this book. In the acknowledgements at the end of the book, B.K. Borson says, when I started thinking about who Delilah would be, who was the female main character, I knew I wanted to create a character who was unapologetically whimsical. So often in media, we see the sunshine girl portrayed as a manic pixie fever dream. No one takes her seriously. She's not allowed to be strong. She's a bit of a comic relief and a bit of a joke. I knew with Delilah that I wanted her softness to be a source of strength. I didn't want her to change a single thing about herself to be worthy of love. The fact that she says we see the sunshine girl portrayed as a manic pixie fever dream, and she portrayed this character as a manic pixie fever dream. And I think there's a difference between a character being whimsical and a character just not having any common sense and self-awareness at all. And there's a scene where she's dressed as a turtle. Don't even get me started. She's in a costume, huge, right? Not really aware of what's going on around her. And she ends up bumping into Jackson, spilling her entire coffee on him and the both of them. And she does not even apologize. And I'm sorry, I hate characters like that, you know? And then the main male character, Jackson, he's in charge of his younger sister, who's, I think, 13, 14, 15, 16, something like that. She's a teenager in high school, and he's her legal guardian. And the way that Delilah acts, he almost treats her like she's his younger sister. The way that he is around her, the way that he has to almost kind of baby her. I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt like he was, you know, taking care of another 16-year-old. And there was absolutely zero chemistry between these two. None whatsoever. Yeah, it wasn't for me. And the fact, again, that it was even pitched resembling When Harry Met Sally, a disgrace. Disrespectful, truly. So yeah, this was a DNF, a flop for me. Arguably the most disappointing book of 2026. That is, and now back to you. Next new release that I read is The Mashup by Laurie Marie Myers. I've spoken about this in my, I think, February wrap-up, so I won't go into too much detail, but this book was truly written for millennials, and it is all about the vibes and the aesthetic of Y2K, because this book is about a 35-year-old woman who wakes up in a MASH game from when she was in 7th grade. Yeah, and if you're a millennial, you've played the MASH game. You know what the MASH game is, right? And I used to play the MASH game all the time when I was in middle school, and I loved playing that game and mapping out what I thought my dream life would be like. Spoiler alert, not even close, nowhere near my dream life in 7th grade, but I really enjoyed this, mainly for the aesthetics and the vibes of this, because it really did capture what life was like in 2004. The female main character lives in basically a Barbie dream house. She has a laser tag room, a beanbag room. She has a huge goldfish tank with like 13 goldfish. She dresses in very Y2K fashion. She listens to all of the throwback pop music of early 2000s. I loved the references to the fashion and the music of the early 2000s. She owns a roller rink. Like, she was truly living her Y2K fever dream, and I was eating that up. Now, aside from that, there really is no plot. There really is nothing happening. Our female main character makes a wish on her 35th birthday for something different to happen with her life, and she wakes up in that MASH game. She's trying to get back to her normal everyday life. Most of the book takes place with her trying to figure out how to get back, but also just, I guess, a self-discovery journey of her not living by the book and being more whimsical and not taking life too seriously, I guess. There was a romance with her brother's best friend, and it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. I think I rated it 3 or 3.5 stars. Very enjoyable mid-book. I ate up the Y2K aesthetic for sure. And if you want to read a book just to transport you back to that time, this is definitely the book for that. Do not expect any life-changing plots, anything revolutionary, but if you are looking for that aesthetic, definitely read this book, because that is truly where this book shined. I really, really loved that part of the book. Not much else going on though, so just know that going in. But I did enjoy it. I had a good time with it. Yeah, that is The Mashup. The next book that I read is Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker, and I actually just read this in March, so you can go watch my March wrap-up where I talk more in detail about this book. But I rated this 3.75 stars, I believe. Kylie Lee Baker really does write the sort of gothic, dark, creepy, unsettling atmosphere perfectly. She really has nailed that, because this book was truly trippy and unsettling the entire time. You are following present day and past in Japan. In the present day, we follow Lee Turner, who is a college student. He flees university to go join his dad and his dad's girlfriend in a very rural, isolated house in Japan, because he may or may not have killed his college roommate. Yeah, he's grappling with the death of his mom. There wasn't any closure with that, and he's sort of going through life high on Benadryl and like over-the-counter drugs in a very lucid state. He doesn't quite remember what he did with his roommate's body because he was in a drug-induced state. There are a lot of unanswered questions as to what happened with his roommate. At the same time, in this house, back in the late 1800s, a young samurai warrior, her name is Sen, lived in this house with her family, and it was a time where the Imperial Army was basically wiping out all of the samurais, and her father was one of the last samurais that survived a huge battle. But it's actually a dishonor for a samurai to come home from battle, because samurais take death very seriously. There's a lot of tradition and honor with being a samurai, and I actually really enjoy that aspect of seeing just how cutthroat and brutal being a samurai was, because I think a lot of media has romanticized like the life of a samurai, but it is very cutthroat and very brutal. Some of them are very cold-hearted, and Sen's dad was one of them. And so she thinks that something's wrong because her dad, the true samurai in her father, would never have come home from a battle. He would have died on that battlefield, or he would have killed himself because that is the honor of being a samurai. Him coming back is sort of an omen to her that something bad is going to happen to her family, because the Imperial Army is trying to wipe out all the samurais. And if they figure out that her father has survived, they are going to come knocking on their door and slaughter all of them. And so she's sort of living on the edge of her seat, this impending doom coming. And the house sort of ends up being a portal between their two worlds and their two timelines, because Sen in the past and Lee in the present end up meeting each other. They're staying in the same room in that house. So Sen sees him through the window and Lee sees her through the window, and they end up meeting, and they both try to help each other answer these unanswered questions. As I said, very trippy. Throughout this book, I really had no idea what was reality, what was delusion, what was actually happening to these characters, or what was a drug-induced state. It makes you really think, makes you use your brain, and it really just trips you out. There's also a lot of action happening, especially with Sen and, you know, the samurai life. With Lee, again, there's a lot of talks of grief and coming to terms with loss, a lot of existentialism as well. And towards the end of the book, the conclusion of this, it got even trippier, if that's possible. My dog is about to come in. Yes? What's wrong? Are you bored? Okay. But yeah, towards the end of this book, it gets even more trippier, if that's possible. I truly was confused because I had no idea if what I was reading was reality at all. There's also Japanese mythology that is woven into the story that plays a part in these character stories. It was very trippy. It really was. I didn't love this as much as I loved Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker, but I still really enjoyed it. Highly recommend if you are looking for a gothic horror book. And yeah, that was Japanese Gothic. Okay, we have now gotten to our 5-star reads. I have 2 last books to talk about. The book that I'm about to talk to you right now was, without a doubt, my most anticipated release of 2026. If I read nothing else this year but this book, I would have been perfectly fine. I can't tell you how excited and how ecstatic I was to not only know that this book was coming out, but also get an arc of it and read it before it released. Thank you, NetGalley. Thank you to the publisher. And that book is The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee. You guys know, I worship the ground that Fonda Lee walks on. She is my queen. She is iconic. She is the moment. She is that girl. She really is. When I first heard that she was coming out with a new book that was a standalone, thank you. Thank you for coming out with a standalone, Fonda Lee. And it's sci-fi. Fonda. No one is doing it like you, Fonda. Truly no one's doing it like you. I gushed about this in my, I think, February wrap-up. Did I read this in February? I believe I read it in February. So I will link that wrap-up below because I like gush about it for like minutes. But this is basically a story set in a completely new planet called Aquila, and we are following Isako, who is an older character. She's in her 50s, and she is a corporate samurai set in space, set on a different planet. First of all, I love that Fonda Lee gave us an older character. We hardly ever see any sci-fi or fantasy books taking place with characters that are over the age of 30, it feels like. So I love that. I love that representation because you sort of see Isako at the end of her career. She is an expert in her field. She is revered. She is highly respected in her field because she has been doing it for so long. So you see the way that, you know, some of the younger characters interact with her and how she is so respected in her business. But you also see the reality of a character that is older and has been doing their job for years. She feels all her joint pains. She feels her knee pains. She knows that she's not as strong and as fast as she used to be when it was her peak days, you know? And she is very set in her beliefs and set in her ways to the point that when it is pointed out that what she thought was the truth really isn't, she does have to evaluate everything that she's learned and everything that she has gone through and experienced for her entire career. You know, everything that she has known is completely upended and she has to deal with that. I absolutely love this. Obviously, it was a 5 out of 5 stars. Fonda Lee writes the most incredible characters. They are so dynamic, so complex. She writes amazing relationships and friendships with other characters. Nothing is black and white. There are always gray areas with those friendships and with the characters' relationship with themselves and what they believe in. Lots of action. It was fast paced and twists and turns. Oh my God, this was phenomenal, phenomenal. And then she managed to create an entire new planet, an entire new world with its own society and its own way of living life. And it's just, no one is doing it like Fonda Lee. I'm sorry to say, like, no one really is. She is one of a kind, unique. She is arguably my favorite author of all time. I love her. This was a 5 out of 5 stars. Grateful that I read this. It comes out on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So if you are interested at all in reading it, please pick it up. This book was so good. Loved it. That is The Last Contract of Isako. The last book that I have already read, that was one of my most anticipated releases, is a book that I finished a couple weeks ago, actually. And I read it. I wrapped it up in my March wrap up. So you can go watch there if you want more details, but that is Molka by Monica Kim, who is the author of The Eyes Are the Best Part. This new release, guys, this is only her sophomore novel. 5 out of 5 stars, truly. Molka is a Korean term for spy cams being installed in provocative places and the voyeurism around it. And that is the theme of this book. This book takes place in Korea. You are following Dae, who was our female main character, and she is dating this very, very, very wealthy heir to a entertainment media conglomerate. He's a piece of shit, honestly. He is love bombing her. He is playing her. And then a scandal breaks out, and it turns out a video of them having sex ends up going viral. And of course, he's wealthy, so he's protected. He is, you know, written off as a victim. Dae gets all of the slut shaming and all of the, you know, negativity, all the negative press from it. And she's sort of left reeling and having to pick up the pieces of her life after this very vulnerable moment is exposed. At the same time, Dae is working at this company, an office building, and there is a coworker who works on the IT team, and his name is Jun Young, and he has installed cameras in the women's bathrooms. The men in this book, truly vile, horrifying, despicable, disgusting, gross, perverts. I hate men. Monica Kim does such a great job of writing characters that you truly hate. Like, you really cannot stand them. And even Dae is not perfect at all. Even though she's going through all of this stuff, she is truly not a wholly good person in this. Monica Kim writes very morally gray characters, but you can't help but rooting for some of these characters, especially with the trauma that they've been through and what they've gone through. Lots of female rage in this. Dae, a story of vengeance. She's out for blood, babes. And we love to fucking see it. We do love to see it. There's a lot of body horror in this, so if any of that makes you queasy, I would stay away from this book, because Monica Kim does love to write body horror and she does it perfectly. I ate this up. I read this in one day. I could not put this down. I wanted to know what was going to happen to these characters. I wanted to figure out what justice was going to be served. It was truly iconic. I loved this book. I loved Monica Kim's writing. I think she is just getting better and better and better. I loved this, honestly, more than I loved The Eyes Are the Best Part, and I loved The Eyes Were the Best Part. If you haven't read any Monica Kim, girl, get on it. Get on it right now. That is Mocha. All right, those are all the most anticipated releases of 2026 that I have read so far. A good mix of good and bad. I'm not mad about it, because I did find 5 stars. I also did find flops, but that's always going to happen when it comes to books, right? I do want to do another video where I update you on more of the anticipated releases that I end up reading, because I have arcs for most of them. Anyway, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.